Hello and welcome to another episode of Who Knew in the Moment, the podcast. I'm your host, Phil Friedrich, and today I'm honored to have Jackie Jamelis with me. Jackie has been on the show before. At that point in time, she was in her playing career, and now today we get part two, and we're going to talk about life after playing. And her current title is VP at Disrupt the Game. So, Jackie, thanks so much for being on.
Thanks for having me, Phil. I'm excited to be back on the podcast.
Yes, you betcha. So last time we had just kind of talked about, getting out of the bubble, and you had just, had one of the highlight moments of your playing career, just playing in the WNBA, hitting shots on Diana Taurasi, no big deal. And then from there, we transitioned more into the coaching side. So talk a little bit about entering into the coaching space after having just been playing.
Yeah, that was all of that happened so fast. As soon as I announced my retirement, and I put that in quotations, on my Instagram, the head coach from the New York Liberty reached out to me like on like a direct message on Instagram and asked me what my future plans were and what I was up to in the next year. I told him I had no idea. I was still trying to accept the fact that I wasn't playing anymore and just let those emotions settle in. But I didn't really have that much time to let all those emotions settle in because he offered me an assistant coaching role with the New York Liberty. And honestly, I didn't even want to coach. I had zero aspirations of coaching. Um, but I figured since it was going to be in the WNBA and it was going to be in a market like New York, that I'd better take the opportunity and see how it is and see if I like it. So I did that, and that was just such an incredible experience. It definitely solidified my um, not doubts, but just like solidified my I don't know. I knew I didn't want to coach, and that made me feel like I didn't want to coach. So
Yeah.
that was good. I needed that experience to really just accept that and know that that's not something that I wanted to be in. But as far as, what it taught me and the growth and everything that season, it was priceless and just truly tremendous. And I learned so much, and I'm very grateful to New York and the staff for giving me that opportunity and allowing me to be in that role so close after being a player. And I do think that I had a pretty significant and special role there, being kind of that bridge from player to coach.
Yeah.
So that was fun. There was a lot of ups and downs. There was a lot of hard work. But ultimately, it was a great team and a great organization, and I really enjoyed myself. I just know that I didn't want to coach after that.
Yeah. Well, so talk a little bit about that. Someone listening maybe can't relate to, being a WNBA coach or anything, but they can relate to maybe they were unsure, maybe they thought they knew, but it's like, you know what? Let me let me try it. And guess what? I did find out that's not the right fit. And just talk about the benefit of that, right? I think sometimes people can say, oh gosh, I wasted a year or, whatever it is doing something
Hmm.
because it didn't end up turning into something long term. But I think oftentimes being able to cross something off the list is equally as helpful as, if it would have worked out really well.
Yeah, no, I think being a coach, there's a lot of challenges, different challenges within that role. Um, for someone like me who is a people person and really thrives off connection with
Yeah.
people, it's a tough position because, oftentimes players aren't happy for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And you can't fix, their unhappiness because of the position that you're in. And I dealt with my own personal challenges of just, um, you know, being a player the season before and then having to come into that role, um, and being alongside a lot of friends and a
Yeah.
lot of people who I was just playing against in the league. And then kind of having to put on a mask and a wall up to not cross, a certain boundary of friendship with them. So that was my own personal hardship that I dealt with. And then, also not being able to fix everyone's problems and not, really being able to fully expose myself to them because of the role I was in. So that was hard for me as well. Um, I think coaching, the amazing things about coaching is it gives you a voice and an opportunity to make a difference,
Yeah.
and to speak in front of large groups and to get that exposure and that experience, was definitely very valuable to me. And I think that it helped me grow in a lot of different aspects of my career and just my life moving forward. Um, so there were some amazing takeaways, don't get me wrong, but then there was like, oh, you have to break down film for, 3, 4 hours a day,
Yeah.
and you're just completely obsessed with breaking down film and knowing every single play that every other team in the league is running. And that is like the busy day-to-day work that I didn't enjoy, and that comes with the territory. So that's kind of why I knew I didn't want to coach.
Yeah. Now you got the opportunity to play for a lot of coaches, a lot of amazing coaches. What are like one or two either leadership principles or, things that really stood out to you as, you're entering into, your or when you were starting to coach and now kind of into your next phase of like leadership ideas that you want to say, hey, I really appreciated that when I played for it and I'd like to incorporate that into my leadership style.
Yeah, I think what I learned the most being in sport, my whole life, um, is when I think of leaders and when I think of all the leaders that I've been graced with, they all had such strong opinions and, really believed in what they were saying.
Yeah.
And I think that when following a leader and looking up to a leader, you have to see confidence within them and know and they think what they're saying is true. And I think that, it's a special type of confidence in order to be a leader or a captain of a team, because you have to be very strong in your beliefs and, be okay with people not necessarily believing in what you're saying, but that's okay. So I think that's a big thing that I've taken with me and have tried to implement into my job today. And just everything that I do in life is just be strong in what I believe in. And if people don't agree with that or have a different, belief or a different idea, that is okay. But still not, obviously being very open-minded and
Yeah.
learning and taking, feedback and other gems from other people, but also still just standing in my beliefs as well.
I love it. That's so important. Now,
Yeah.
back in 2012, you needed to hire an agent because, you're going to play sports and that's a helpful thing to have when negotiating contracts and finding the opportunity. So you meet this gal named Allison and you were with her for a very long time. And if I understand correctly, she was kind of getting started in her career and you still went with her, which is not always the most popular decision, right? Sometimes they say, well, no,
Yeah.
go with someone experienced because they have the experience. But you're willing to take a shot on someone that was maybe younger and newer to the business. So talk a little bit about the beginning of that relationship for you guys.
Yeah. I think you set it up really well. She was a year younger than me, and she was in the very beginning stages of her career. But the one client that she had before me was Lisa Leslie. And that was enough for me to know that this girl is the real deal.
Yeah.
If she's good enough for Lisa Leslie, she's definitely good enough for me. And I think Lisa saw something very special in her at a very young age. I mean, Lisa was working with her when Allison was 21 years old. That's just an incredible story to me.
Yeah.
Um, so at the time, I didn't even see it as I'm taking a chance on this young agent. I felt very connected to her, both professionally and personally. I loved um, her work ethic and her eagerness and her hunger to want to be, really good in what she was doing. And that's all I needed at that time in my career, especially after going through so many knee injuries. She was like a very fresh, like breath of air for me
Yeah.
to meet someone, of her stature and of just everything about her. I was just really grateful to have met her, and obviously our working relationship and personal relationship has lasted this long, and she's one of my best friends till this day. Just really happy to now be working with her on the agent side of things.
Yeah. So how did you guys originally get connected then to even start working together player agent wise?
Yeah. So I think just throughout the course of our working relationship, me as the client and her as my agent through my basketball career,
Yeah.
we had always kind of joked around about working together one day and me working for her agency down the road. But when you're an athlete and you're playing, you don't even really take what down the road like means, and like you don't really take it that serious because you don't think your career is ever going to end, and
Yeah.
you're not really going to have to worry about anything. So I think for me it was just fun, light conversations with her. But we always kind of joked around because I'm a very much people person, and she knew that I'd probably be a good agent one day. So fast forward, we got serious about those conversations, and we decided to team up on this side and see where this thing can go.
I love it. Now, I think there's probably a couple of things to break down. One is, what was it about your guys' relationship and maybe the way Allison treated you that made you want to stay with her, right? I think so frequently you hear people switch agents or, hey, things just aren't working out and they look for someone else that's going to represent better. So, what for you, made it click that you wanted to stay with her? And then what were some things that maybe Allison did on the agent side for you where you really felt appreciated as the player?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, I think for me with Allison, it was always I knew how much she cared about me, both personally and professionally. Um, and that's a majority of the reason why I decided, why I stuck with her for my
Yeah.
entire basketball career professionally. She was very loyal. She had a different idea of not only helping me on the court throughout my basketball journey, but also off the court. And she brought this marketing piece and this different skill set to me and to her clients before everybody else had finally like picked up on it.
Yeah.
Um, she knew that life after basketball was inevitable, and she wanted to help each client prepare for that next step. And I think that she was doing this before everybody, before that became popular and marketing became a thing and brand partnerships became a thing. Um, Allison has always cared about off the court, just as much as she did on the court, because that's more of something that she could control. She can't control the on court stuff as much. We have to handle that as the player.
Yeah.
Um, so we, just collaborated on different ideas for me and for my career and my journey and my injuries, and just fully maximize the potential there and what we could do together. Um, so yeah, I think that her loyalty and her brain off the court were two things that really kept me there. And don't get me wrong, there were times where I wasn't happy, and I felt
Yeah.
like I could maybe be getting something different or something more at it with a different agent. And I think every player will experience that through their time, with their current agent. That's like, we're not human if we don't think, oh, the grass could be greener on the other side.
Yeah.
Um, but just my bond and my loyalty to her and her loyalty to me is what really, just kept us together. And I knew I would never leave her for anything. And I made the right decision. She was the best agent for me throughout the course of my entire career.
Yes. So as you head into this new role, talk a little bit about what you'll be doing and then really what the focus of Disrupt the Game is. Is it strictly, female basketball players? Is it multi-sports? Is it multi-genders? Talk a little bit about where you guys focus and what you'll be working on.
Yeah, so it's a sports and entertainment agency. So we're not just strictly women's basketball. We have two NWSL players. We have some people on the broadcast side. We have a former softball player. Um, so yeah, I mean it's an agency for women by women. Um, and we're just trying to target not only the best athletes, but the best people too. We're a smaller boutique agency, so it's quality over quantity. We
Yeah.
don't have, an excessive amount of clients where we can't put maximum effort into each one of them. And I think that that's really important because, I hope that they can all feel that they're important to us, because we're not, we don't represent 50 or 100, different players that we can't really give them what they need.
Yeah.
So the fact that we do have a smaller agency and less in quantity, I think that it's really beneficial to them and then also us, so we're not over promising and under delivering.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been really good. I like the boutique feel. I had a short 2 year stint with a corporation, Nike,
Yeah.
for 2 years. So I did come from a bigger corporation, and the boutique smaller agency is definitely more my vibe.
Yeah. Well, and I think something that will be unique and powerful for you is just what you talked about earlier with, the leadership piece of it. Hey, the thing that I appreciate most is somebody that has strong conviction and then they own it. Well, how much more conviction can one have about a company than, hey, I was represented by them for 11 years, right? And
Yeah,
I could have left or I had other opportunities, but this is where I wanted to be and I wanted to be there so much that I'm actually now working and helping run
yeah.
it, right? So talk a little bit about just your conviction behind, what your guys' boutique firm will do and why, certain athletes should be entertaining you versus, hey, or, athletes, entertainers, with you
Yeah.
guys versus other spots.
Yeah. Well, the great thing about the dynamic between Allison and I is where I lack, she picks up that slack and vice versa. There are things that my skill set is, probably better, and same with her. She's been in this business for many years and she's made a great name for herself and has a great reputation. But it's also a business where not everybody's going to like you either.
Yeah.
And that's okay. But I do think that the two of us teaming up together is definitely something special. Um, Me coming on to the agency as a former player is unique in itself. There's not very many former players that are agents. One that comes to mind is Tisha Pinachero, who was one of my idols growing up. She played for the Sacramento Monarchs. She was one of my favorite players a
Yeah.
majority of my life. And now I'm kind of in, the same working space with her and essentially competitors, in the
Yeah.
same industry. Um, and it's a humbling role and it's a humbling position to be in, being a player and then now servicing clients.
Yeah.
So it's unique, but um it's definitely a challenge and it has its ups and downs for sure. But I think, our boutique agency and the fact that we don't represent too many players and we are able to really give 110% into each one of our clients as best as we can is why I think people should, come to us and be with us and give us a chance, because oftentimes when players go to bigger agencies, they're overlooked and they're competing with a pool of other star athletes and it's hard to get the opportunities that they deserve.
Yeah.
um so if we have only 4 or 5 stars on our roster, that's just a less pool of competition for them to have to deal with for brand partnerships or anything else that comes their way. um so yeah, I mean, it's just attention to detail, and you want to feel wanted and you want to feel like your agent is helping your life, and I
Yeah.
definitely think that we bring a level of that in every capacity. And I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't be recruiting, I wouldn't be advocating for this agency if I didn't believe in what we did.
Right. 100%. And you wouldn't have stayed with them if you didn't like what they provided, right?
Yeah,
Now,
exactly.
one of the things I think you said to, Allison's original, one of the things you appreciated most was just some of the unique, ahead of the curve ideas she brought to you when you were in the athletic space and playing. And to your point of, hey, if you're one of 1,000 people at a firm, it's just very hard to get a unique blueprint for your specific attributes unless you're probably the top athlete, right? Whereas if,
Right.
hey, I've got 10 people that I'm servicing. I know a lot more about Jackie than if she's one of 1,000. And then I can
Yeah,
bring unique partnerships, unique brand deals to the athlete because it's like, well, that really meshes well with Jackie opposed to here's kind of our generic blue, template and
exactly.
blueprint.
Yeah, no, you said it perfectly. I think what we try and do, and what I think a lot of players, have a hard time with is they don't see the day-to-day outreach that
Yeah.
we are, making on their behalf. You know, as a player, all you care about is if a deal is brought to you and there's dollar signs behind it,
Yeah.
right? But the work and the outreach that goes into that, it's hundreds of emails a day to brands and you trying to tailor and target the best brands for that athlete. So what we usually do is we try and get a good sense of what our athletes like and what brands they want to partner with and they would like to be collaborating in a specific space. And then we do our best to reach the right person and try and get them a deal with one of these brands. Um, but when that list runs out and there's still, not an offer on the table, well, then we have to get creative and we just have to continue to keep reaching out to different brands and do the most and the best that we can. Um, and it's hard because it's a very, very competitive space to be in because there's
Right.
so much amazing talent out there, men and women in different sports across the board. So you're competing with a lot of different athletes. So a lot of it is brand relationships too. And once you do connect with the brand, maintaining that relationship and fostering that relationship and hoping that that brand continues to use your athletes in the future. Um, so yeah, I think I've got my feet wet pretty heavily in that space the last couple of years, and I'm still trying to, build up my list of contacts and all of that and try and source deals for our players. And it takes a long time, and Allison's way ahead of me in that space. And thank goodness she is because she makes our clients very happy in that space, I believe. And I'm just trying to catch up.
Yeah. Well, last thing that I'd like you to just highlight a little bit, I'm sure 2 years from now we're going to have a lot more insight, but you mentioned, hey, we're partnering together and where she's really strong, maybe isn't my strong suit and vice versa. We bring different skill sets to the table. And I always think in theory that sounds good, right? Because we've kind of got the complete package, but the frustration sometimes can be what you're really good at and I'm maybe not strong in. We have differing of opinions, but how do we come to
Right.
reconciliation? So talk a little bit about, having admiration and respect for someone and be able to figure out, hey, this is your lane. I'm just going to trust that you've got this and that
Hmm.
this is my lane. So I appreciate your insight, but maybe give me a little bit more trust here because this is what I know well.
Yeah. Um, I think working with Allison and being, as close as we are, we've been able to have a lot of arguments and get over them pretty quickly. And we've gotten to a point where we're able to separate our, relationship professionally and personally. And, it's a hard thing to do, and it's still a challenge. It's not
Yeah.
completely figured out, but there are things that she's a lot better than I am and more experienced and just she's been in this longer than I have and she just has a certain set of skills that I don't. um so I've always trusted Allison for since 2012. I've trusted
Yeah.
her with everything. And now she is learning to trust me with certain things. And it's we've had growing pains. It hasn't been easy, but I think that we're at a place right now where we know each other's skill sets so well that we do have a lot of trust in one another. Um, and that's taken time. It hasn't been easy, but we've gotten to a good place, and we're going to continue to grow and just elevate each other and help each other.
I love it. Well, Jackie, I want to say thanks for hopping on and sharing part two. It'll be fun to just continue to watch your journey. And yeah, probably 3 years from now, we'll do this again. And who knows what you'll have grown the firm to or what you'll be doing. But always appreciate your insights.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
Yes.